We've been hearing about the limbs of creation. These limbs of creation are all the notions that arise in consciousness. It's described here as the dynamic energy of consciousness. It's the dance of Kali. It's the attention which moves around, identifying with one notion or another. And the limbs in the body of this dynamic energy are all the factors of our life. Everything which we define our reality by. Our body, our family, friends, job, our daily rituals. And Rama asks if the limbs in the body of this dynamic energy are real or false. We're often told that it's all illusion, aren't we? It's all illusion and we shouldn't get caught up in it. But this is a very modern question. We want to know what is real and what is not real, so that we can discard the unreal and get on with what is real. What is the reality of a notion, of an idea after all? What is the reality of a thought? Because it's what we think which is what creates our reality. O Ram, all these are indeed real, for they have all been brought about by the operation of this dynamic energy of consciousness, and they are all experienced by consciousness. So here we're being told that everything is real. Everything is real. Just as the mirror reflects a real object that exists outside, this consciousness reflects within itself that which is within itself, hence it is real. It's in the same way that a mirage is real. A mirage is clearly something. We just have to be quite clear about its nature. That's all. We have to adjust our relationship to it. Even the imaginary city or the illusory appearance of the city arises only in consciousness, whether the appearance arises because of persistent contemplation or because of the purity of consciousness. So things can happen spontaneously, or we can be led to believe that things are such and such a way because this is what we've been told, or we've had this belief reinforced over time. The point here is to try and get away from this cognitive process of dividing things into real and unreal. We're putting everything on the same level here. This is the understanding from an equanimous perspective. We're not caught up in wondering whether things are real or unreal. We can be told that either everything's unreal or that everything is real. And this is what's happening right now. The trouble with regarding things as unreal, it gets us into the habit of filtering things, of splitting up what's going on into real and unreal. And there's only the one thing going on. This creation is real, whether it is regarded as a reflection or a dream object or a fancy, because it is based on the truth, which is the self. This is my opinion. If you object, but these fanciful creations are of no practical use to me, consider of what use are they who have gone to a distant country. They are of use to the inhabitants of the village to which they have gone, even so with everything. For practical purposes, it's very useful to decide what is real and what is unreal. If there's a sewage disposal problem, we have to focus on that. We have to give it our attention and deal with the sewage disposal problem. There's no point in thinking, well, that's all unreal. I shall just get on with my meditation. You get on with what needs to be done without dividing things into reality and unreality, without rejecting or accepting things on that basis. This is Vasistha's hypothetical argument. Fanciful creations are of no practical use. So a unicorn is a unicorn as real as a horse? We cannot go out and ride on unicorns. We can go out and ride on horses. So does that make the horse more real than a unicorn? Well, right now, a horse is as real as a unicorn. There's neither a horse here or a unicorn here. We might analyse it and look into the different ways we relate to these concepts. We will say that the ideas of a horse came from a different place to the ideas of a unicorn. And this was the distinction that was made previously. We could describe the horse as having arisen because of persistent contemplation. The image of the horse has been presented to us in lots of different ways, either what we might call in the flesh, or in pictures, in films and so on. And the image of the unicorn exists in the purity of consciousness. It's a purely imaginary creation. So we'd like to say that the horse is more real than the unicorn, but that's not so. That's not so. That's the division we can make for the purposes of consensual reality. But the actual situation is, right now, right here and now, the unicorn is as real as the horse. That's the simple situation, no matter how much you might object. But if you object, it's because you're wanting to apply the process of cognition to it. All I've got here are ideas of horses and ideas of unicorns. Is there some difference in the substance of those ideas? Ideas are simply notions. And we have notions of reality and notions of unreality. In the same way, if somebody goes to live in a distant country, well, you don't have any more contact with them. The only relationship you've got with them is in your memory, which is notional. And it says here, they may be of use to the inhabitants of the village to which they have gone. They are real to other people. So I think when Vasistha mentions the phrase practical use, he means the practical reality. You can say that a horse has got practical reality, but that a unicorn doesn't. But the practical reality is really the consensual reality. It's what we all agree is what is real and what is not real. It's got quite fuzzy boundaries because a lot of people believe in things which clearly don't have practical reality. But generally, we don't dispute things like the reality of a horse and the unreality of a unicorn. But we're not talking here about the practical reality. We're not talking here about consensual reality. We're talking about reality. And the distinction between the practical reality and fictitious ideas doesn't apply because it's all consciousness. Right now, a horse is no more real than a unicorn. But if I wished to spend a lot of time meditating on a detailed representation of a unicorn, of visualizing this unicorn, well, depending on the powers of my visualization, that unicorn will become very real. And for some people, the gods are very real, more real than anything in the consensus reality. So we don't really want to get too caught up in this distinction, this cognitive distinction between the real and unreal. It's useful when we're working in the consensual reality in that particular mode, but that mode is not what is real.